Can art bridge a divide? When I began this course, I'm not sure what I was really expecting to learn. Certainly, though, I was totally unprepared for how much the course would affect me and all the things I would come to learn, not only about Iranian culture, but about the way politics and institutions shape the world around us. Iran is a place I could only conceptualize in terms of conflict. I knew that America had been involved in wars in West Asia, but I didn't really know why. My high school's history book stopped before addressing these conflicts, and so I never really had a full grasp on the subject. Any other views I had of Iran were shaped by movies and by Orientalist depictions of West Asia in art. I imagined bazaars, empty desert landscapes, people traveling by animals. This starting point was informed by an American conception of the quote-unquote Middle East, a place where terrorists hid out. I knew that what the media and art was handing to me was not only lacking, but potentially inspired by racism and hate. Our first exercise in the class forced me to consider where I collected these views from when I wrote down a few things that I thought of when I heard the word Iran, and also collected the thoughts of others. This made me even more open to discovering what comprised Iran's cultural landscape. And in the first documentaries we watched about Iran, I was excited to discover and disappointed how poorly the country had been represented to me. The clip where Iranians name off places in America was particularly eye-opening for me at the beginning of the course. And now as this course has come to a close, I've realized how rich with life, culture, contemporary art, and contemporary growth Iran has. It's a country not so much stuck in the past, as it is full of everyday people just as invested in the future as I am. While learning about Iranians' art forms, I was excited and enthralled not just by the traditional miniatures, such as like book arts that we learned about, also the weavings we learned about, other works of the past. I wasn't just excited by those. I was energetic to explore the modern and contemporary art scene in Iran. And this became a side kind of course of study for me, not only through my presentation about Iman Afsarian, but through my contributions to our website. Artists like Afsarian showed me the range of art forms that contemporary Iranians are exploring and have explored, and it really gave me a lot more of an appreciation for Iranian arts. All in all, the course has given me a deep appreciation for Iranian arts, though I know that I've barely scratched the surface of what Iranians have produced, and I don't think that I could ever really get a complete grasp on everything that Iran has to offer, though I'd like to. So what has learning about Iranian art done for me? I have a bit more of a grasp on the culture than I had previously, and I have a grasp on how politics affects the art world, I guess, globally, locally. But I can't say I can take away much else. Not that I don't feel satisfied with the course. It's quite the opposite, in fact. The course has sparked my curiosity and gotten me really excited to do further research. And yet, US sanctions still remain. The Iranian people are still suffering from the exclusion from the world market and from COVID now. And the US still remains a world superpower. From where I stand, I can do little to bridge the gap. Education, I think, can only do so much, and art can only do so much. Art can let us approach people with more empathy. It can communicate the human experience in a way few mediums can. But it alone cannot affect policymakers. While this unbalanced power dynamic remains between nations, and this is a thing that I think is almost impossible to combat, art is unable to solve all misunderstandings. It cannot provide economic relief to people. It cannot solve all misunderstandings, and it cannot solve xenophobia. It cannot stop US sanctions, and it cannot protect those who speak out against injustice. Iran is connected to America, though it may want to be released of that connection, while many US citizens cannot name a single city in Iran. Education and art can help US citizens to take steps away from ignorance, but our education leaves Iranians in the same position. Another roadblock to bridging this gap is the Iranian government itself, which there's some artists that are either exiled or have left, such as on screen I'm showing something by Shiva Ahmadi. There's also the artist Sharon Nassat that we learned about, and many others. Their works communicating their criticism and dissent would not necessarily be tolerated if they were being produced in Iran. Within the country, citizens have a limit to accessing information, which there may be some ways to get around this, but this also can stand in the way of any campaign or attempt at peaceful relationships, not necessarily between governments, but between citizens, between educators trying to communicate with each other, between artists attempting to collaborate. I would like to take an optimistic view on this subject. I would like to say that art can do anything, but I'm not sure that it can. I'm studying visual arts and I want to make a career out of creating things. I love art, but I do recognize that there are limitations to it because change takes real action. It takes lobbying to politicians, spending real time to mend America's relationship with Iran. And at the moment, before we can begin doing that relationship building, there are a lot of things that need to be done. And this change may start with education, but it cannot end there. What art can do is really just to be a starting point. Now, not everyone in America has access to a college education. Even fewer will pursue a course of study that gives them a grasp on different cultures. But art can be a path in to fighting ignorance. For policy to shift, we need politicians. Unfortunately, we need them to see a policy as either beneficial to their lobbyists and the businesses that are supporting them, or they need to see the American public rallying behind an issue. But there will be no rally and no lobbyist groups fighting to mend America's relationships with West Asian nations if Americans are completely unaware of the region in any concrete way. Art, there is its role. It can inspire and it can spark people's interest. It can help to get people educated, though Google and our media are an interesting source of information. I guess any education is better than none. And art can help us communicate that the quote-unquote Middle East is not just some zone that the US military occupies. It is a region filled with nations of human beings deserving of life and dignity. Social media can be a tool for spreading awareness and for spreading art just as much, if not more, than an institution. Everyday people can spark movements, as we've seen in the past few months, and armed with the emotive and communicative power of art, citizens could begin unlearning that poor education that the media has given us. And to conclude, bring us back to this question, can art bridge a divide? In my opinion, no. Art alone cannot bridge a gap. It is a powerful tool, but it alone cannot suddenly mend the long ruined relationship between, for example, the United States and Iran. However, it is an important tool in our toolbox, and we cannot deny that art has power and that it is useful. And so I don't think that we should give up on art in all. But I'm not trying to, be completely dismissive. I understand. I recognize that art is used. Art can create symbols. It can create icons that people can rally behind. But we have to recognize its limits in order to then take the step further. Say, this art inspires me, but now I have to go out and do something. And it'll only be when people take action that we can cause real change.